Welcome back to part 2 of our IPL MVP series, maybe the highest count of abbreviations ever on this channel. If you haven't seen part 1, click on the link and have a look at that. You can hear about the time that Rahul Sharma, Pragyan Ojha, Cameron White and Anil Kumble ruled the IPL. But if you've already seen that, continue to watch the IPL's middle overs. In 2013, Chris Gayle carried on from where he'd left off in the previous 2 seasons. He had arguably the greatest peak by a top order batter in IPL history. Not really a surprise to see him on the top right of this chart. Virat Kohli and Mike Hussey produced very good numbers for top order anchor type batters. David Miller, though, had his best IPL season with Punjab. He was on the top of our charts for both true average and strike rate. It's really weird to think back for quite a few years, he just couldn't do stuff like this regularly. The CSK duo of Dhoni and Raina sustained their brilliance. De Villiers delivered yet another world-class season for RCB, being the second quickest batter of the season when it comes to true strike rate. And Aaron Finch had a pretty good season as well, something that we probably wouldn't have discovered from raw stats alone. He was obviously never that consistent in the IPL, but he certainly had some years. Sunil Narine was the most economical bowler of the season by a comfortable margin. Steyn and Faulkner were the most economical of the quick bowlers. Faulkner was probably the most impactful bowler of that season because he was among the best on both of our metrics. His career arc was such a shame. His knee injury affected his bowling and he went from a T20 hitter of incredible power to basically like a high functioning strike rotator. But I think this tells you how good peak James Faulkner was. And you also have here DJ Bravo and Mohit Sharma, who took a lot of wickets and didn't concede that many runs. But again, let's talk about Shane Watson. He batted in the top 3 and bowled in all 3 phases of the game. He checks all of our 4 boxes: true average, true strike rate, true wickets, and true economy. The quadrella. If you're getting that much out of one player, he's got to be the most valuable asset in your team and probably the season. When Watto was good, there was no one even really that close. 2014 was the season of the big show, Glenn Maxwell. He well and truly arrived in the IPL this year, which is kind of weird for me because I remember when he first played for Victoria as like a number 8 who didn't really bowl or bat that much. But this season he was batting like few middle order batters ever have. He combined power hitting with incredible consistency in the first half of the season that year. Robin Uthappa, the Orange Cap winner, was also positive by a good margin on both of our measures, his other exceptional season. Dhoni was brilliant on true average, but basically scoring at a palm run rate throughout the season. And we all know why he did this and the way that he played, but it is interesting to see him in this position on the map. He certainly liked to take games deep, and he took them deep. You can see that Warner, Miller, Raina and ABD continued their brilliance in the IPL. Simmons and Vora were the best openers of that season as well. Lendl Simmons at his absolute best was a beast. Unfortunately for him, he just had too many years where he was just knocking the ball around. Narine and Malinga were exceptional yet again, but have a look at Akshar Patel. The left-arm orthodox spinner made things very difficult for the batters in what was his debut season. From this moment on, I think he was actually unappreciated. And it's only now, really since he's been good in Test cricket, that he's getting the due credit for his brilliance as a defensive option. Plus, of course, now he can whack them a little bit better with the bat. The Sharmas, Sandeep and Mohit took the most wickets of this season. However, Sandeep's true economy was on the higher side, while Mohit was fairly economical despite bowling a lot of his overs at the death. In 2015, AB de Villiers had an impeccable season with the bat. David Warner continued what would be a 7-year stretch of dominance with the Sunrisers, the ability to score way more than usual runs while also doing it at a great rate. And you can see he's even just a little bit better than Chris Gayle here. Surprisingly, Yusuf Pathan made a lot of runs but on a negative strike rate. Does this mean he lost his power? Or as often seems to happen with Indian players, was turned into an anchor? But he is not the most interesting person around here on the graph. That is because it was Ajinkya Rahane's best season in the IPL. Well, certainly until this one. And I think what this does show is that Rahane's form this year is not quite the outlier that some people might think. For the bowlers, R. Ashram was the most economical bowler of the season. He managed to do that along with a positive true wickets measure. Mitchell Starc is interesting because I've long looked at this as one of the best IPL bowling seasons ever. But on these figures, as great as it is, Malinga and DJ Bravo are right there with him. But Dre Russ produced monstrous all-round numbers this season. He gave De Villiers, maybe De Villiers plus, level batting numbers and Boovy level bowling numbers. This isn't something he did every year, but this was freakish. It was probably one of those few true, genuine all-rounder years that we had seen from someone like Shane Watson. 2016 is often the year that we think about Kohli and Warner because they made a lot of runs that year. And on our metrics, Virat had an incredibly high true average combined with a way above average true strike rate. And Warner was right there with him as well. Again, we know that De Villiers was incredible. Dwayne Smith has an interesting true strike rate here, but was negative on true average. He was a fantastic player early in his career, and he played a lot of T20 games, but this was a bit of a surprise late on performance from him. Yusuf had again a magnificent true average, but his true strike rate dipped from the previous seasons. As I said, return of the anchor. This was the Mustafiza year, and also Chahal pops up here, but for very different reasons. Both of them had major roles to play for their respective teams. Chahal was the best bowler of the season in terms of true wickets, while the Fizz was the most economical bowler. He went at more than 2 runs an over less than what anyone else would have in those overs. It was truly the greatest death bowling season we'd ever seen, and I'm including Malinga in that. There are a few Indian pacers here who are very good in the power play, like Bhuvi and Sandeep and Dawal. But this was really the season where Bumrah completely arrived. On the all-rounders front, Chris Morris's season didn't get as much hype as some of those Shane Watson and Andre Russell seasons did. But he played an incredible knock against the Lions where they lost by just 1 run, and he was one of the finest death bowlers all season long. Krunal Pandya also had a pretty good season as an all-rounder who scored quick runs and bowled economically. He actually didn't face that many balls or deliver that many. So when you combine them, you can see just how good he was. Morris and Krunal Pandya, I still think, are pretty underappreciated for how good their best years were. Hashim Amla had a brilliant run in what was his second and last IPL season. Typically considered a longer format batter, he performed brilliantly for Punjab this year. He also had very similar seasons to the orange cap holder, David Warner. You'd have to question why he's not picked up by any franchise in the upcoming seasons. Finch and Punt had great true strike rates, but they had a negative on their true average. If you look at the top left of our bowlers, you'll see that you have Bhuvi Kumar, that makes sense, and Jaydev Unadkat. One of those is surprising, and one of them not as much. They were incredible all-phase bowlers for their respective teams. And I think Unadkat being here is just extraordinary, because he had 1 year like this, and then all things considered, he struggled all the way through the rest of his IPL career. Ben Stokes and Jasprit Bumrah were in the same tier when it comes to bowling this year. This is probably the best bowling season that Ben Stokes ever had with the white ball in his hand for England or any franchise he ever played for. He should probably get this graph framed. This was also the year that Rashid Khan arrived in the IPL, and of course he celebrated that by being the most economical spinner of the year. I remember, now it seems like a fait accompli, but back then people weren't sure if an Afghanistani spinner would be any good in the IPL. Obviously Ben Stokes was incredible for his all-round brilliance in this season, but this also has to be one of Glenn Maxwell's most underrated IPL seasons. Not only was he the quickest scoring batter, but he also contributed with the ball quite a bit, and as he can be at times, he bowled very tight. He's always an extremely high value asset in T20s, even though he's been a bit more hot and cold in terms of form when it comes to the IPL. But of course, when it works, big show. Okay, that is done for the IPL middle overs. If you enjoyed this, press the bell icon, like it, and subscribe. And if you want, take a guess at who might make our list for the next period in the comments below.